Hello everyone and welcome to the Gazing Table. It's really great to have you with us at the India Today Conclave. And what we hope to do over the next 45 odd minutes is to go across all these tables and to understand and hear from some of the people who've joined us at the Gazing Table about what to expect over the next 5 years. As all the opinion polls are predicting at this moment, it seems that there is a high probability that the Narendra Modi government will get re-elected. And if that happens, in the field of national politics, state-level politics, business, foreign affairs, how is India likely to change? So the whole idea is for you to tell us things we don't know. There's a lot that's written about. It's the gazing table because we are gazing into the future. You're all experts in various areas, and you know things we don't. So gaze into your crystal ball and tell us what you think will happen. So I want to get started with this interaction by getting India's top television journalist, Rajdeep Sardesai, to kick things off for us and tell us how, at the national political level, Rajdeep, you see things change over the next 5 years. What may happen which we're not anticipating? What may happen which is different from what we're seeing in front of us?
Rahul, if our numbers are right, and it's a remarkable election in the sense that I don't think one has seen an election where month before the election, every opinion poll is moving in the same direction and a certain predictability and inevitability seems to be there over the outcome. So if our numbers are right, Rahul, which is what, 350 to 400 for the BJP and its allies, I think we are seeing a distinct sign of Indian parliamentary democracy moving towards what I call a single party, single leader, quasi-autocracy. I use the word quasi-autocracy deliberately because I believe Modi's India is not Erdogan's Turkey, it is not Putin's Russia, which are frankly full-blown autocracies. There is a history of democratic contestation and political pluralism that can't just be shoved aside in a decade or a decade and a half. But I do believe that the rise of this quasi-autocracy, as I call it, will have serious implications in the Indian context. And I'll just flag off four very quickly. First is the weakening of our constitutional democratic pillars. Legislature, judiciary, and I know we are in a media conclave, but bloody hell, the media too. Number two, center-state relations, which I think will become more and more fraught. Already we are seeing it. The announcement or the push towards a one nation, one poll could be met with resistance, but fundamentally you will see an undermining of federal principles with decisions being taken in Delhi and rammed down. So we saw it with the farm laws, and you will see resistance in different parts of the country as you move towards this quasi-autocracy. The third will be a north-south divide. Politically irrelevant south, but an economically robust south will lead to tensions, like it or not, with a politically dominant but economically slow-moving north. Battles over equitable distribution of resources are already taking place. They will sharpen post the 16th Finance Commission, and I see that widening. And finally, because we're also in a civil society space, I see less and less space for dissent. The targeting of NGOs, which has taken place in an extremely unfortunate manner, when an institution like the Center for Policy Research, and we may have some people here who sit there, and the manner in which that institution has been targeted and the criminalization of dissent by using even organizations like the Enforcement Directorate and this terribly punitive law called the PMLA to target people simply because they may have alternate opinions or because those institutions may not necessarily toe the line. I think it creates a fearful society of a kind that India was never meant to be. And yes, Rahul, let me say this, and this is why, let me end on a more hopeful note. Why I call it a quasi-autocracy, while I call it a quasi-autocracy, I think also, or I hope, India is so remarkably diverse that any attempt to bring in uniformity will beyond the point lead to resistance and a backlash. Even as we speak in this lovely 5-star air-conditioned room, be clear, there is a protest somewhere in some corner of the country, either on paper leaks, an issue that my friend Saurabh's Lallan Top has been taking up, but sadly most other media does not, unpaid wages, delayed justice, or as we witnessed in Manipur, in the deepening ethnic fault lines. And saddeningly, and as I said, unfortunately, there isn't enough attention being paid to issues like that. So net, Rahul, don't give up on Indian democracy, but don't be complacent either, because else we are hurtling towards becoming a quasi-autocracy. Quasi-autocracy is you asked me before the show, throw up a word. I think we are moving towards a quasi-autocracy. I just read a book, Revenge of Power, and every sign of what is there. He has 3 P's, the author Moses Naim: post-truth, polarization, and populism. And I see all 3 starkly in our face in this country at the moment.
I want to go across to Siddharth Zarabi, managing editor at Business Today Television, to look into his crystal ball and tell us how he sees the governance framework evolve over the next 5 years if Prime Minister Modi were to be re-elected. Siddharth.
I think one of the key things that we need to put up right here is consequent to the Supreme Court's judgment and the plan for One India that has also been submitted by the panel led by former President Ramnath Kovind. Reform of electoral finance, reducing the number of elections and the cost that is incurred by the Indian economy, by Indian corporates and Indian society will be one of the key pillars that has emerged. Some days ago, when the Prime Minister held his last meeting of the Council of Ministers, and this was where they were all told to first have a plan for 2047 Viksit Bharat, and also a 100-day agenda to sort of hit the ground running once the government comes back to power. That's what the Council of Ministers was told. I think there will be 3 key programs on economics, and I would say that rather than looking at the politics and imagining certain scenarios, Modi 3.0 will be clearly focused on governance and economic reform. In that, one of the key reasons for the success of this government has been taxation reform, more on the indirect tax front. You will now see direct income tax reform also coming into the agenda, hopefully this July or maybe later. That can't be predicted. The second is a continuing expansion of infrastructure, which beyond the drawing rooms and television newsrooms and the debates that we tend to do in one direction, will actually change the life of ordinary Indians. You already see people saying, hey, we just traveled 30 kilometers one side to go to work. That's changing the way suburban India, rural Bharat is connecting with urban centers of growth, and that will be a key societal change driver as well, because our cities will come under pressure and our cities, which are melting pots, will therefore have to respond. The third bit really where we will see a lot of action and change will be the ability of states and their delivery of goods of governance. In that, the divide between the so-called Revdi culture, as the BJP calls it, as the Prime Minister has described it, and those states which are progressive will come to the forefront. So just to summarize, Rahul, I think Modi 3.0 and what we can expect beyond the doomsday predictions will be economics, governance reform, and continuing to ensure that public goods reach the last person and are delivered smoothly without corruption through the last mile. Thank you.
So that's very useful. You've got some food for thought going. Rajdeep wants to jump in. Yes.
But I forgot the 4th big divide, which is religion. I mean, just think about it. We are talking about Abki Bar, 400 par, 350 par. This government at the moment in Parliament does not have a single Muslim MP. These 350, 400 par is also probably not going to have a single Muslim MP. 13% of your population in a way is being invisibilized. How many Muslims? I don't want to say it in this room also, but I know in my own colony, which is an affluent upmarket colony, how many Muslims live there today? There is a systematic invisibilizing of the Muslim. I'm not blaming an individual for it, but this is the nature of it. And indoctrination has set in. And I think since we are in a media conclave, we in the media should also look inside how much have we done to spread these kinds of stereotypes, prejudice, and the worst kind of hate politics that targets people because of the community they belong to. Nothing can be more dangerous for India in the future, the country with the 3rd largest Muslim population, if the party in power with 400 MPs cannot throw up a single Muslim MP or cannot actually actively promote a sense of genuine cooperation between communities. Don't blame anyone, and we in the media need to look inwards. I forgot that, that's why.
It's food for thought. You're getting some claps as well, and there's some people who
There should be louder claps.
louder claps, some people not necessarily very happy.